Welcome to the Action Network studio in New York City. I'm Maria Marino, and this is Green Dot Daily. Happy to start another week. We come to you live every weekday at 3 Eastern on the Action Network YouTube channel and the Action app. Also find us on demand. And not too far from here, Rangers-Devils Game 7 is going down. We'll get some thoughts on that from Michael Leboff. Plus, which MLB team could be experiencing a hangover after Mexico City? We'll get into that. But in the NBA, conference semis are set, and one of the matchups is highly anticipated, and that's Warriors-Lakers, two of the greatest to ever do it, Steph Curry and LeBron James, and they have a rich history. 2015, you all remember, was the year that started the Warriors dynasty. Steph Curry wins his first league MVP, gets his first ring. LeBron's first year back with Cleveland, spoiled. Dubs win the series 4-2. Andre Iguodala, finals MVP. 2016 was the birth of the 3-games-to-1 meme. LeBron's iconic block in Game 7 leads to his third ring. He brings home the first and only title for Cleveland. Record-setting 73-9 Warriors can't finish the job in the postseason. How did the Warriors respond? Bringing in Kevin Durant. They beat the Cavaliers in the 2017 finals in 5 games. Golden State went 16-1 in the playoffs. Durant, his first NBA Finals ring, and he is unanimous Finals MVP. And finally, in 2018, the Warriors sweep the Cavaliers to win their third title and become the 7th NBA franchise to win it all back-to-back. This was LeBron's last season in Cleveland. Durant, once again, the Finals MVP. Here's a look at the prices for those series. Cleveland completes the historic upset in 2016. 2018 is another year that stands out. Golden State at the peak of its powers with Durant and a weaker all-around Cleveland team created a wild odds disparity. Now this semifinal series coming up, probably the most evenly matched, as we bring in Action Network senior writer Matt Moore to look ahead to this series. Who would have thought these would be the two teams that we would be looking at in this position? How do you see the series playing out?
I think it's going to be fascinating. I think both of these teams are flawed. Both of these teams are not nearly as strong as they've been over their time playing one another. There's going to be so many narratives, and every single game is going to be a referendum on the legacies of both players, which is ridiculous. But I think overall for bettors, it's going to present, I think, an interesting opportunity depending on, a number of factors. Well, one of the things we really kind of have to figure out here is what this looks like in terms of Game 1, right? Because it's so important for the series. We know how often teams that win Game 1 go on to win the series. LeBron is actually 0-4 straight up versus Steph Curry in any sort of playoff series in Game 1. 1-3 against the spread. Obviously, that incredible game that he had where J.R. Smith, lost track of time, as it happens to happen. So who among us hasn't forgotten what time it is and what the score is late in the finals Game 1? Curry is 15-7 straight up and 13-9 against the spread versus LeBron in the playoffs. It's via Evan Abrams, our great analyst over at the Action Network. It's going to be, I think, one of the things is to kind of evaluate is to understand this Warriors offense is not as good as it has been. This Warriors offense is really honestly kind of struggled versus a Kings defense that is not good. Now, the Lakers did a really great job defensively versus a Grizzlies offense that was really terrible. So we don't know who these teams are really in the playoffs, because both of them, the Warriors go 7 games versus a Kings team that they were heavily favored versus. The Lakers get it done in 6 versus the Grizzlies. But even then, you look at it, and I think that Memphis had some opportunities in that series. It's going to be very difficult, I think, to figure out exactly who these teams are. I lean towards the Warriors because of their edge in three-point shooting. I lean towards the Warriors because of the way that they play when Steph Curry is on the floor. But if Anthony Davis is the best player in the series, the Lakers will have a chance to actually upset Golden State and finally get LeBron James another win versus Steph Curry.
Oh man, I haven't wrapped my head around the series as a whole yet, but I did share some thoughts on Game 1 when I joined you on the Buckets podcast for the very first time. So that is a shameless plug for that and myself on that podcast. Now, as we kind of just look at the landscape as a whole, futures market, you have some thoughts on potentially some value for Finals MVP. What do you got?
So let's start with Steph Curry, who's plus 650. That's a wild number. Like, that's an absolutely wild number. He's literally never lost a Western Conference playoff series. He's never lost a Western Conference playoff series. He's lost in the play-in. He's lost in the finals twice, but he's never lost a Western Conference playoff series. So the odds of Steph getting to the finals pretty high. And at plus 650, look, one of the things when you're evaluating finals MVP is you have to think about not only what are the odds of that player winning or being on the winning team, but also who else could take it from him. What player is going to get it from Steph? Like, yes, Andre Iguodala got it. Yes, Kevin Durant got it. But Steph got it last year.
Yeah.
And Steph, there is no question that Steph makes the finals and the Warriors were to win another title, that he would obviously be the heavy favorite. We saw last year his impact. He is notably and definitively better now than Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, the other two guys that might be in that conversation. Andrew Wiggins will not be able to put up the numbers. Jordan Poole will not be able to put up those numbers, so Steph's got good value there. Devin Booker is my favorite bet. It's the most heavily bet in the market, plus 1,400 at BetMGM. Most bet in the market is that bet. It's been absolutely hammered. I actually got 1,900 at 1,400, still great value. Booker is the most impactful player on the Suns. He's going to fill up both in assists and scoring from the field. KD will do KD things, but Devin Booker, I think, could actually wind up winning that award if the Suns were to make the finals. And finally, Jimmy Butler, plus 2,800. You want to count Jimmy out? I don't. He's got to get past 2 more series. And yeah, he's got the ankle injury, but I'm not sure this Knicks team is all that good. And the Celtics team, I think, are vulnerable. I'll take Jimmy Butler plus 2,800. Those are the 3 best plays for finals MVP.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's once you get there, who is going to be that standout player? And those 3 that you mentioned absolutely fit that bill. Now, let's talk about the games for tonight. There's a little bit of excitement kind of taken away from Philly-Boston game 1 as Joel Embiid is doubtful. But that being said, what's your play on this game?
So this line's dumb. I'll just say that. This line's really dumb. The average line this season was Celtics minus a half a point. At home, it was still Celtics minus 3. Joel Embiid's worth 7 points to the spread. 7, really? Went through shoot around, doubtful for this game. There's all sorts of conflicting information. I can't honestly tell you if he's going to play or not. I can't tell you that there's a good enough chance that where it's worth it to bet the 10. What I will say is that this line can't be accurate. There's no way that even from, an opening line of like 4.5, that Embiid would be worth 6 points to the spread. That's just simply not accurate. No player is worth that much to the spread. So it's not really possible for us to get to that kind of a line. Embiid might play, like I said. Wait and see on that. I will say I love the over here. Without Embiid, the Sixers are going to shoot more threes. They're going to consistently have to spread the floor. Without Embiid, the Celtics will be able to get to the rim easier. They'll be able to attack and be more efficient inside. So either the Celtics are going to put up a big number, or the Sixers will shoot more threes and put up a more efficient number, or both. So I really like the over here in this one, over 214.5.
Now, how about Phoenix and Denver? That's a game you will be at. So what will you be looking for?
Yeah, I like the Nuggets here minus 4.5. When home faves won and covered game 1, and then game 2 has a line that's 2 points short, that's less than 2 points shorter, so it hasn't really adjusted, that the books are basically like, no, we're just going to run it back after, even if you won that and won and covered in that one. 87 and 72 at 55% against the spread and 74% straight up. This Nuggets team is a much better team. The Suns can win the series with their individual talent. They can execute better. I would look for in the second half maybe a Suns play here, because I think the Suns will probably figure some things out in the second half, but I do think the Nuggets will lead in the at halftime. And I do think they'll cover the 4.5 here. I think this series will shift dramatically when we get back to Phoenix, but Denver has too many weapons right now, and Phoenix is going to have to take some time to figure out who they can and can't play in this series. So I will take the Nuggets here minus 4.5.
I agree. I think Phoenix is going to make adjustments and play much, much better. But to your point, that line isn't that big, so it makes it curious. Well, Matt Moore, like I said, I had a blast with you on the Buckets podcast. So if you haven't checked that out, please do. And we'll talk to you again here soon on Green Dot Daily.
Thanks for having me.
Green Dot Daily is presented by BetMGM. Use bonus code ACTION when signing up to get up to $1,000 paid back in bonus bets. If you don't win your first bet, terms and conditions apply. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. 3, 2, 1. To the NHL, and the Bruins, who were title favorites, completed a huge collapse on Sunday. The President's Trophy curse continues as the last 10 trophy winners did not go on to win the Stanley Cup, and 8 of them, listed here, did not make it past the second round of the playoffs. As we say hello to our hockey expert, Michael Leboff. So the Bruins were up 3-1 in their first round series, go on to lose 3 straight to the Panthers. Can you just break down the magnitude of this?
Yeah, I mean, from a betting perspective, the Panthers came in to the series as a plus, 250 underdog. So it's not like this is a historic upset by the odds, but with the way the series shook out, the Bruins going up 3-1 and then losing 3 straight and losing 3 games in the series on home ice. They lost 7 times at home ice in the entire regular season. So there's a lot to unpack here, but looking forward now, it does just completely open things up in the Eastern Conference. All season long, we were talking about how the Eastern Conference is a gauntlet with Boston and Carolina, the Maple Leafs, Rangers, Devils, all these elite teams. I think you could have made an argument that there was a big 6 in the Eastern Conference, and we're now without 2 of them in Tampa Bay and Boston, the biggest of the big 6, and Carolina, too. Like they're dealing with injuries. So it's all of a sudden just completely open. We'll see who wins between the Devils and Rangers tonight. I know we're talking about that in a little bit, but you can now make a case for any of the 4 teams that will be playing in round 2 in the East to have a chance here. And so you got to kind of adjust a little bit with how you look at it. I think it does make Carolina a little interesting. They are dealing with injuries. They do struggle to score, but they play such a swarming style of hockey that's hard to match up against. And while I do think that they do match up pretty well against the Rangers, I think that they could give the Devils some issues, and depending on who gets out of that Florida-Toronto matchup, that as well. So that team could have issues as well. So they're just a team I would keep an eye on. I think that their outlook changes a little bit here because they're such a matchup-dependent team. But yeah, it's a pretty wild start to round 1 here with Boston and then Colorado in the West already out.
Wild indeed. Now, my question regarding the Panthers is just how far can they go?
Yeah, they can go far. This is a team with a very high ceiling. They won the President's Trophy last year. They were one of those teams on that list that we saw, and we know that their forward group is one of the best in the NHL. They can match basically any team lines 1 through 3, and the fourth line is serviceable. There definitely are some question marks on the back end and in goal, but they could score enough to cover those things up. And we saw last year with Colorado that if you have your elite producers putting up 4 or 5 goals a game, you're going to be tough to deal with no matter what the goaltending and defense does. So I think they're a live underdog, but the best way to play Florida, I think, from a betting perspective, is Matthew Tkachuk is 50-1 at BetMGM to win the Conn Smythe, which is given out to the playoff MVP. So if you think Florida can upset Toronto, all of a sudden they'd be in the Final Four, and you're 1 series away from getting them into the Stanley Cup Final. And Tkachuk right now, he's second in the playoffs in scoring. He's got 5 goals, 6 assists for 11 points, and he's in the middle of the betting board. He should be, I think, closer to that 18 to 25-1 range. Some sports books have him out there, but if Florida is live, and I do think they are in this matchup, it'll be on his back, and he's proven to be an elite player. He's probably going to be one of the top 3 regular season MVP nominees. I mean, Connor McDavid ran away with the award, but Tkachuk could very well finish second in the voting. So this guy he's an elite player. If the team is trending up, and they are, I mean, they had a great close to the regular season as well. If they're making noise, it's likely because Tkachuk is a monster. So I would make that bet, as soon as you can, because if you, like me, you think that they do have a chance here against Toronto, you're going to be wanting to hold that ticket.
Right, and you have to have some creative foresight in order to find really good value. Is there any other team you like heading into the second round?
Yeah, I still have the Oilers circled. Of all the teams that won their series so far in round 1, I think Edmonton is the one that did it with kind of the most style and answered the most questions. Vegas was really impressive against Winnipeg, but the Jets were dealing with a ton of injuries, and they just kind of wilted down the stretch. I mean, they had a very ugly post-playoff press conference from their head coach, who didn't think his team was really fully bought in, and they might have had some effort issues or whatever you want to call it. So Vegas maybe caught a break with that matchup and looked better than the actual series scoreline suggested. Dallas has been good too, but they're going to now deal with a Seattle Kraken team that can match them line for line and rolls 4 lines basically better than any team in the West. So Edmonton, to me, like, sure, they had to come back in the series, but I think that is actually going to be a good thing when you look back on it. They handled some adversity. They were down 1-0 in the series, and they were down 2-1, and they were down 3-0 in Game 4, and they were able to battle back and completely took over that series against Los Angeles. And with Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl firing on all cylinders, especially Draisaitl, Edmonton to me looks like a wagon. So I would be betting them. If they lose Game 1 again, or if they're down 2-1 in a series, make your future bets then. I don't also hate just backing them to win the series in a route, whether it's like -2.5 games, -1.5 games. They are a favorite against Vegas despite not having home ice advantage. And Edmonton's goaltending issues, which didn't really bite them against Los Angeles, they shouldn't here either. Laurent Brossoit was good for Vegas in goal in round 1, but we kind of know what to expect out of him. He's just about an average starting goaltender in the NHL. So the Oilers shouldn't be asking too much out of their goaltending in the series. So I like the matchup for Edmonton here, and I think that they are a team just to have circled, even if they face a little bit of a speed bump early on in the series.
Fair enough. Now to the pressing matter at hand. There's a Game 7 tonight. Rangers at Devils. Who you got?
Yeah, this is interesting, and it's been interesting all series because the way that the series has shook out, it's basically been 3 different kind of chapters where the Rangers dominated those first 2 games. The Devils played into their hands. New York wants to sit back and kind of just keep you at bay while they wait for their opportunities, whether they come on man rushes and counterattacks or the power plays, and bet on their goalie to just keep them in the game as long as they can until those opportunities arise. And the Devils played right into that script in games 1 and 2. And they played a much more mature game in games 3, 4, and 5 and won those games. And they also got better goaltending from rookie Akira Schmid. And then the Rangers kind of took back that narrative again in game 6. And what's interesting here is games 1 and 2 were played in New Jersey. And though the odds for those games were -135, the Devils closed that. And that was with Vitek Vanacek in goal. And when it became clear that Akira Schmid, the rookie, was an upgrade over Vanacek, at least in this series, the market still was pretty confident in the Rangers on the road. Game 5 closed -115, and that came after Schmid played really well in games 3 and 4, and the Devils played really well in games 3 and 4. And now for game 7, after the Devils won 5, Rangers won 6, we're right back at that kind of price range. So the market has kind of agreed that the Devils were a little overpriced to start the series, and this is a true coin flip in game 7. I would slightly lean towards New Jersey. I think that it looks right in terms of, this game is really, really hard to handicap. I think you can make a salient argument whatever way you want to choose. But if the Devils are able to stay out of the box and stay disciplined, they should have the better of play. They're the much better 5-on-5 team. The Rangers need the Devils to kind of make mistakes for them to win, whereas the Devils, the opposite is true. They just need to play a pretty clean game, and if you trust them to do it, they should be able to get the job done and have the skill to win this one. But it as the odds makers are telling us, it's a coin flip. So whatever way you want to go with this one, I don't think there's a wrong answer pregame.
Very interesting. It should get a little crazy Jersey side later today. Michael Leboff, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, anytime.
Over to MLB, and according to BetLabs, moneyline underdogs so far this season are off to their worst start in more than 15 years, hitting at a 37.9% clip with a -12.5% return on investment. And with that, we have Charlie DiSturco joining me in studio. Isn't this fun? What is your take on this trend of moneyline dogs being less than profitable?
Well, first off, hello, Maria.
Hello.
But, the last 2 years, it's been pretty painful if you're just a blind underdog bettor, but that's not how you should be. But I think the biggest thing is it's a growing in disparity as among talent and with care within the front offices. So, you see the teams like the Oakland Athletics. They're more interested in moving this team to Las Vegas than they are actually improving the team as far as talent goes. You see a lot of these bottom feeders, they're not willing to spend as much because of the market they're in, because of the salary cap. They're not trying to do that. But then you'll see teams like the Mets and the Braves and the Yankees, they spend. They have no care in the world. They really want to win, and they will be willing to spend and win that and to get that money. But when it comes to the prospects and it comes to, re-signing these major deals, a lot of teams do not have that care to do that. So that's why I think we see a lot of favorites winning and winning early the last 2 years.
So how do you approach it then with keeping all of that in mind?
Right. I do think it's a good time to buy low on certain underdogs. You have to look at, the teams that have the best ability when it comes to how their bullpen is, how the rotation shapes up, how their young talent is. A prime example, the Kansas City Royals. Their 1-5 lineup, Bobby Witt, Vinny Pasquantino, MJ Melendez, Sal Perez. That's a good 1-4. And their bullpen's top 10 in xFIP. So when you look at just how much success you're going, you want to find that right matchup where you have a player or a pitcher that you like to back against a good team with a pitcher you're looking to fade. Prime example, this weekend, I took the Royals, and they had a great opportunity and a great pitching matchup. Brad Keller on the mound, almost a plus 200 underdog. They get it home because they end up having that bullpen depth, and they have that starting lineup that is actually quite underrated. But then again, you don't want to bet the Athletics or some of those teams.
Well, first off, little pat on the back for you.
Thank you.
And by the way, I think there's a team that's kind of in that spot that might be one of your best bets later. So we'll get to that in a second. But first, we're going to play a little game called April Showers Bring May Flowers. You've heard that saying before. But the idea here is you give us a couple teams who have been struggling to start the season, but you believe can turn it around in May. So who do you think?
Right. So if you blindly just told me the Padres were 15-14 after April, I'd say, uh-oh. But then you put it into perspective and you see just how bad Juan Soto, how bad Manny Machado's been, and the fact that they did not have Fernando Tatis Jr. for the first 20 games because of suspension, and you put it all into perspective, I'm like, oh, that's pretty good. So I'm looking to buy low on the Padres. They're up to plus 145 to win the NL West. I think that's a great bet. The Diamondbacks are ahead of them. I don't think that's sustainable. The Dodgers have a lot more problems than you would think. And the Padres, they're in a great spot. Joe Musgrove's back. He's healthy. And that lineup is not going to stink for this long. Yeah. Like Machado, Soto, these are proven all-stars that will be extremely well. So you look at Soto, a 202 average. You look at Machado, a 236 average. So these guys are going to get going. And when they get going, you're going to want to back them.
Anyone else?
Yeah, so so if you listen to the Payoff Pitch podcast back in the preseason, I was banging the drums like St. Louis stinks. Yeah. And in the first month, 10-19, the starting pitching is a concern. But everything else, when you look at this team, very solid. Their offense is around that top 11, 12 in WRC+. Their bullpen is actually number 1 in xFIP, and it's not even close. It's by a large margin, by multiple tenths of an xFIP. So I like the opportunity to buy low on the Cardinals here. You look at their division, the Reds, the Cubs, the Pirates. The Cardinals are going to get going. And the pitching is not good, but as long as the starting pitching, you can get 5-6 innings out of them, that bullpen will pick up where they lack, and that offense it's only a matter of time before they get going.
All right, so some optimism for the Padres and Cardinals. Before we let you go, we have to get your best bets for today's action, and I already teased one, which I believe is a moneyline underdog.
Yes. So, what more fun than to take an underdog amid the worst month of an underdog? The Washington Nationals money line at plus 120. I have a problem, and it's backing Mackenzie Gore every time I can because he is incredible. 3.38 expected ERA, a strikeout rate above 30%. This guy was a top prospect when he came up, traded in the Juan Soto deal. Now he's coming into his own. Top 15% of all pitchers in expected slugging, barrel rate, whiff rate. He looks really good, and a large reason of that, the curveball, 2 mile per hour increase, and his expected batting average actually 130 this season compared to 251 last year. So forcing a lot more ground balls. I like his chances at bouncing back. And Drew Smyly, everyone's talking about that near perfect game where his catcher tackled him, talking about how good this 33-year-old is. Well, he's got a 4.29 xERA and a 2.47 BABIP. I'm expecting a lot more struggles out of this 33-year-old. I'm not buying a career revival from a 33-year-old. So I like the Nationals here to get the job done.
Well, I guess I understand that for baseball players. As a 33-year-old myself, I'm hoping, the career revival is happening. But what about your next pick?
Well, my next pick is a little bit of a fun one, right? You teased this in the beginning.
Okay.
And it's about a tequila hangover.
I
have never been to Mexico. but I have had a few too many tequilas on a Saturday night. And my performance the next day, usually not
than stellar?
up to standard.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So what am I going to do? I'm going to find a way to fade these teams. The San Francisco Giants, prime example. I'm not trying to fade Luke Weaver out in the San Diego game, but the Giants here, team total under 3.5. They have a hard matchup in Luis Garcia. I'm continuing to buy low on him. Over the last 2 starts, 13 innings pitched, 0 runs allowed, and that's the Tampa Bay and Toronto. Now he gets an offense that ranks dead last in strikeout rate, that is coming from Mexico City, where the elevation was 7,300 feet, 41% more than Coors Field. We talk about the Coors Field altitude. Well, now we're going back to Houston. That's plus 50 feet. So the elevation difference,
Right.
and in a one-day span, I mentioned the hangover.
Yeah.
They literally just went from Mexico City. Now they're going to Houston. The altitude difference, I'm going to look to fade them. The Giants, I don't buy their offense. You look at the Rockies, how they do, a near 290 average and a 438 slugging at Coors Field. On the road, a 220 average and a 332 slugging. Obviously, the Giants are not the Rockies, but there's some clear issues here. Garcia's a great pitcher, and the Astros have the second best bullpen as far as xFIP goes. So even if Garcia struggles, they pull him right out, and we get a great bullpen to back us up and take us home.
So we don't know for sure whether tequila was consumed, but we do know that we have a team coming from Mexico City. You talked about the elevation difference. So Charlie, thank you as always for the information. Always great to have you in studio with me.
Always great.
All right, well, remember, any picks we give out here on the show, like the ones you just heard from Charlie, you can easily reference. Just follow green.daily in the Action app. We keep track so you don't have to. Green.daily is presented by BetMGM. Use bonus code ACTION when signing up to get up to $1,000 paid back in bonus bets if you don't win your first bet. Terms and conditions apply. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. That's going to do it for Green.Daily. Once again, I'm Maria Marino. Thanks so much for hanging with me, and I'll see you right back here Tuesday at 3 Eastern on the Action Network YouTube channel and the Action app.